The former president, long banned from Twitter, announced the raid on his bespoke social media network, Truth Social, saying his beautiful home in Mar-a-Lago was under siege. The political persecution of Donald J. Trump has been going on for years, he thundered about himself. With the now fully debunked Russia scam, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, it never ends.
The Biden administration, the Democrats are weaponizing the FBI, and it has to stop.
In my opinion, this is communism.
The US Justice Department hasn't said why the FBI conducted the search, but reports have linked it to an investigation into whether Trump illegally removed records from the White House. Republicans are painting the raid as an act of retribution.
It's unprecedented. Why wouldn't they just ask the president if they have something there that they want? He surely would have provided it to them. Why did they have to show up in the manner they did?
Prosecutor Mary McCord was chief of the National Security Division at the US Department of Justice. Mary McCord, welcome to the programme.
My pleasure.
How high is the standard for the FBI to get a warrant to search the home of the former president?
Well, the legal standard doesn't change depending on, whose home it is that you're searching. The legal standard is under the federal rules of criminal procedure, Rule 41, which is that a warrant must be based on probable cause to believe that evidence of a crime will be found at the location and at the time specified on the search warrant. And the reason I say at the time is because the evidence of probable cause, the facts used to establish probable cause, can't be so old that they're stale and they wouldn't suggest that the evidence will be found still, on the day of the execution of the search warrant. And so that probable cause standard is based on facts that a federal agent will put in a sworn affidavit and present to a federal judge.
What kind of crime or crimes are we looking at here?
Yeah. So if this reporting is accurate, that this has to do with the mishandling of presidential records, including classified documents, there's a variety of things it could be, but the two most obvious are there are crimes related simply to the mishandling of presidential records, really public records, not just presidential records. The second possible area of offenses that could, be the basis for this search warrant are actually offenses related directly to classified information, including gross negligence in the mishandling of classified information, taking it from its proper place, because classified information must be stored by law in a safe or even a more secure facility called a SCIF, a secured compartmentalized information facility. And it can't just be stored in your dresser drawer or your desk drawer in your personal home.
You say the same standard applies across the board, but this is the former president. Would Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, have had to approve this warrant himself?
I would expect that a warrant to search a former president's home would go all the way up the flagpole at the Department of Justice to the Attorney General. Certainly when I can't speak to what did happen. I can tell you when I was in the department, particularly when I was the acting assistant attorney general for national security, if a warrant like this had been something I was considering, I would have made sure that this went all the way to the Attorney General for the Attorney General's approval.
Would a raid as controversial as this one have to have something like a breach of national security in the background to warrant it?
Yes, I don't think the Department of Justice would authorize seeking a search warrant for a former president's home if it wasn't sufficiently serious. So that could mean either that the documents are and other materials or information are at such a high level of classification that and any other efforts to obtain them maybe have not resulted in getting those documents back, that they want to ensure that they are not in a place where they could be vulnerable, to being shared with others, where they could be vulnerable to others accessing them, where they could potentially be shared with, foreign governments, foreign agents, foreign adversaries. And so those are significant national security interests that I think would be at play. I do not think we would be seeing this activity for the simply mishandling of non-classified information presidential records. I think that would be, too much for the department to want to get involved in, given all the sensitivities surrounding this.
If Donald Trump was effectively found guilty of stealing documents from the White House, would that bar him from running again?
So first of all, I want to make very clear to your viewers that, there's a lot of steps between the execution of a search warrant and being found guilty of a crime. He hasn't even been charged with a crime yet, right? And I also want to be clear that when you execute a search warrant at a person's home, that does not necessarily mean the person whose home you're searching is the target, because you're searching for evidence of a crime, right? Even if it's not a crime you think that person committed. Now, having said all that, we're talking about, retention potentially of presidential records and classified information by President Trump, or at least with President Trump's knowledge. So if there were to be an indictment, if there were to be a finding of guilt on that, one of the statutes I referenced earlier, the one that refers to taking of public records willfully, that does include a bar on holding public office.
Mary McCord, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.